On January 9th, I felt like trying out Flow and Flower from the Journey Collector's Edition on the PS3. I mostly picked up this game because I wanted a physical copy of Journey, but I also remember hearing some good things about Flow and Flower as well. In Flow, you play as a fluorescent organism that resembles an amoeba. The game provided no instructions other than to tilt the DualShock 3 in every which way to control the organism's movements. The tilt controls took me some getting used to, and I felt kinda stupid making these motions at first, but they ended up working well once I got the hang of it. Flow's gameplay and premise was simple. You eat other organisms, grow, and descend levels to reach the end level for your organism. Once you reach the final level in your descent, you start anew as a different species of organism and repeat the same process. Each different organism species differs in looks and abilities. My favorite species to play as was the one that moved quickly, because it was easier to eat and avoid the more powerful species in the later levels. I loved the simplicity of the gameplay and music, which only intensified when you reached certain levels, with strong organisms looming. In these instances, I would do my best to avoid the threats and descend to the next level without taking any damage. I loved seeing the bright neon colors of the organisms mixed into the black backgrounds of the game because it made me feel like the game took place during the dawn of time, somewhere deep in the ocean where sunlight is no longer visible, or a combination of both. Once I completed playing as each organism, I played through the interactive game credits scene, which was something I had not experienced in quite a while. I started Flower right after I finished with Flow, and I was once again greeted with the only actual game mechanic tutorial, which told me to tilt the DualShock 3 to control my flower petal. For some reason, this game's controls were more difficult for me to grasp, and I felt like my movements were not as fluid, and I stuttered constantly throughout the game. Each level of the game is represented by wilted flowers, each of a different color, sitting on a table. Completing a wilted flowers level causes the flower to bloom and radiate in its health. As I made my way through the game, I don't really know what happened with the purple flower level, as I played through it twice because it never ended up blooming upon my completion of the level. I don't particularly care enough to figure out why this happens. This was the most difficult level for me because a lot of flowers that you had to collect were found near metal structures that would electrify your little flower petal if you were to touch them. This game contained particularly beautiful piano tracks, which went along well with floating around as a flower petal in the wind, collecting other flower petals and bringing flowers to life in different environments. I thought the game was a fun little experience, as you once again had to play through the credits portion. I started my replay of Journey the day after I played Flow and Flower. I played through Journey twice back when it first came out in 2012. Back then, I was truly entranced by how different it was from all the other video games I had played up to that point in my life. During that time in 2012, I was lucky enough to have multiple different players join me on my playthroughs of the game, which is one of the main things that made the game so meaningful and memorable to me. During this current playthrough, I didn't expect anyone to show up, and ultimately nobody did, but that's okay. It was interesting because I seemed to take some different path from my first two playthroughs. I started exploring the game's main area starting from the right side, which led me to a snow area that I do not remember ever experiencing. In this new snow area, I had to brave the cold winds and this giant flying insectoid robot that struck me from above twice. It was a bit horrifying in a subtle sort of way. My character ended up dying while trudging in the snow, making its way to the light between the rock formation. As my character faced certain death, a bunch of large figures that slightly resembled the character stood over him. My character woke up with the most badass scarf and flew its way to that final light with some beautiful music playing in the background. The game's graphics and minimal design held up really well, and I enjoyed my third playthrough of Journey, despite how short it was.